We're here to talk about linkage hookup in the fuselage. The first thing I wanted to do is familiarize you with the kind of linkages that we're using in the Sparrowhawk. The Sparrowhawk has 1mm push rods, and we're using 47 thousandths wire for the Z-bends and couplers. The way we're going to do this is we're going to use a method that I've been using for many years. It's a fail-safe, fantastic method. I've never seen it fail, and it's as simple as you can possibly make it. We have our 1mm push rod, we have our 47 thousandths Z-bend, and then we're going to attach them together with CA glue and a wrap of thread, which is included in your kit, and I'll show you how that's done. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to put a drop of CA glue on a non-stick surface, and we're just going to hold our Z-bend on that 1mm rod. Be sure to leave yourself a little bit of clearance here to clear the servo horn. You want to make sure that you have about at least 1/4 of an inch of overlap, and then simply just stick a little bit of CA glue. This is not structural, this is just to hold it while you're threading it. Okay, now you see it's being held. We have plenty of overlap there, that's just fine. Take your thread, and here's what you're going to do with your thread. Hold your fingers just like this, grab that thread, start wrapping. Just start wrapping. Make one full wrap all the way to the end, and then come on back. Okay, there it is, it's all wrapped up. And just take your threads, hold them down. Okay, and then just soak it with CA glue. Alright, now I generally take these extra threads and just give them a twist. That's the completed project. Now let's go ahead and get a pair of scissors and snip off that extra thread. And that's the completed Z-bend. And when I say it's fail-safe, it's been proven over years of serious abuse not to ever fail. That's a very, very good way, simple, light, and effective way to hook up your control surfaces, and that's the method that we will be using in the Sparrowhawk. Let's get started installing these servos. First thing you want to do is put yourself a soft cloth down on your workbench. You don't want to scratch up your beautiful fuselage while you're installing the servos. Let's go ahead and pull this canopy hatch out of the way. The canopy, let's fix my band-aid first. Canopy has a magnetic catch and back. Just pull that off. Let's set that aside. And then if you look in here, you're going to see the servo mounts. And you're also going to see the push rods. They come pre-installed in the aircraft. The top one is elevator. The bottom one is rudder. They go through a machined Teflon guide and back. I would like to say this about these push rods right now, and this is maybe the most important thing that I can tell you, is that this top one, which is coupled to the elevator push rod, the elevator bell crank. Let's take a look back there. Take a look, you can see that bell crank moving. That is a sealed assembly, and you can't, unfortunately, you cannot get at that push rod and back. It's built in. So if you were to break this push rod, which would be difficult, but you could do it by overstressing it right here at the guide. If you were to break it, it would take extensive repairs in order to replace that push rod. The procedure is actually to cut this tail stub off and install a new one. So at all costs, we're going to be very, very careful with this top push rod. The rudder push rod, fortunately, is a little bit easier to replace. It can simply unclip and be replaced. Not so with the elevator, so let's just be very careful with it. In service, it's very close to impossible to break the assembly, so it's not something we really have to worry about too much. Now, one thing I would like you to notice in here is that if you look at the servo tray, you're going to notice that one set of servo blocks is lower. The front set is actually lower than the back, and that's to drop down the forward servo a little bit lower to account for the fact that these push rods are stacked top to bottom. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to drop that front servo in first, very simply, and as I mentioned, being very careful of those push rods. Let's set this down on the bench. I'm going to go ahead and just pop that front servo in.